All right, all right. Welcome everyone. Sorry for the little delay. Our lunch was late for half an hour. But now we're starting the Tech Talks at the AEC Hackathon Helsinki. We have four amazing speakers for the next 2 hours or so. My name is Teemu Lehtinen, I'm from KIRAHub, and we're one of the organizers here this weekend. First, I would like to give the stage to Ilkka Rinne from Spatineo, and with a topic of even GeoJSON is better in 3D. Okay.
Thank you, Teemu. So yes, welcome all. Seems you have a busy day here. Sounds really good. Good to be here in AEC Hackathon. And yeah, my name is Ilkka Rinne from Spatineo, and yeah, I'm going to talk about it's a tech talk, so it's a bit technical. Talking about GeoJSON and the next evolution or extension of that, which is called JSON-FG. What can you do with that? First, a few words of my company. So we are a Finnish consulting software company founded in 2011. And we basically focus on everything cloud-based, location-enabled data, APIs, data formats, data models, and stuff like that. And personally, my position is I'm one of the two founders of the company, and working as an interoperability architect at the moment. This basically means just making computers work together with APIs, with data formats, various data systems work together. First, a few words of GeoJSON. If you haven't heard of GeoJSON, you probably haven't worked much with spatial data, because it's really everywhere, and it's been there like for ages. Considering internet age, it's a simple way of encoding location data. So it's supported widely in various software, and it's just made for web maps, web applications, and it's great. It's just a few lines of code, and you can throw that into GitHub, and you can immediately see that as a leaflet map, for example. So it's very easy to use, much easier to understand than, let's say, if you work with CDJSON, CDGML, XML models. It's a lot to take in, and this is just, you can see the coordinates in there. It's a polygon geometry, and then you have properties which can be anything. But the simplicity also comes with a cost in this case, as it usually does. So GeoJSON doesn't support 3D geometries, for example. So you can't really do polyhedrons and prisms and stuff like that. And all your coordinates are basically in this latitude, longitude, latitude VGS 84 coordinate reference system. So if you have some local data which is on some other coordinate system than the typical, the Google longitude, latitude, you're out of luck basically with just GeoJSON. There is no typing of GeoJSON features. I'm coming back to this a bit later, but you can't really say that my GeoJSON object is a building. Well, you can say that, but nobody understands it unless they're really familiar with your data. And there is no direct way, a standardized way to link to a JSON schema which describes your structure, data structure, your GeoJSON objects. And there's no built-in support for temporal, which is the time information basically for GeoJSON objects. You can do that, but there's no standard in that. So it's not easy to do that. Let's say have a time slider over a map where you don't know which of the properties is actually the time. So we are part of the Open Geospatial Consortium as a Spatineo. It's an open standards organization which is building all kinds of open standards on location APIs, location data. And one of the activities that we're working on right now is extending the GeoJSON into supporting some of these basic things that we all come to expect and when working with GIS data. And I'm just going to brief you into the most important things that the JSON-FG brings on top of the plain GeoJSON. This also fits very nicely in the family of new OGC API standards, which are based on OpenAPI. So it's a very, very much more modern approach than if you sometimes work with web feature service or web map service. This is a new generation of OGC standards for spatial data, for maps, and also the data sets. It works very nicely with GeoJSON, also works very nicely with JSON-FG. The first thing is, I think is probably the biggest thing, is that there's the JSON-FG now extends on the geometry support of GeoJSON. So there is a new dedicated property for this extended geometry information, which is called place, at least in the draft. So they're now, if you look at the JSON-FG features, you may find two properties which describe spatial information. One is the typical usual geometry, and that's going to stay as it is. So we're not breaking any backward compatibility with that. But there's a new one called place, and within that you can describe 3D geometries, for example. And if you have, if you're working with some of the proposed extensions, you can also describe geometries using arcs, circles, and stuff like that, which is not supported by the IATF GeoJSON. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that's being proposed in this draft. Another thing is there is now in JSON-FG, there's a standard, a way to describe time, which is related to your geo object. That's just called time, but there are three flavors of what kind of temporal information you can provide. You can just say that this is you're providing a date or a timestamp, which is a date and a time. Or you can say that this object actually belongs to a time interval. And within that interval, you can use either dates or timestamps to say, or it can be unbounded from one direction, for example. So you can say that this object is valid from now on until further notice. So that's nice. The other thing is that there's no typing provided using this feature type property. So if you work with the GeoJSON, you know that there is a mandatory property called type for each of the object, and that always needs to be a feature collection or feature. And that's not very useful if you want to describe that, by the way, my object is a building. So there's new property for that called feature type. So if you have typed data, you can use that to say that, by the way, my feature is a building. That's useful, especially with the linking to schemas, because now you can say that I know that this is now a building, and now I can discover the JSON schema that actually describes that building object. So what are the properties that you could expect there? You can run validation on your data based on those JSON schemas. We're not inventing JSON schema, obviously, but now there's a direct way, standardized way to link from the object to the JSON schema that actually describes that object. So that's another feedback from the world that basically is a typed world where you have this kind of classification system for your data. And if you have that, this with feature type and this schema actually allows you to nicely work with data that can be validated and can be shown on a map in different ways. So if you have a building, you can put a different kind of visualization of it on the map, for example, just by using the feature type. And then I think this is probably the final thing that I'm going to bring up today on the new features. So the JSON-FG supports other geometry, other coordinate reference systems than the VGS84, and it seems it's a bit silly looking thing. Chord ref sys. Why is not CRS or something like that people usually use? And the reason for that is there was a 2008 version of GeoJSON which actually had this CRS property in the spec, and it was dropped in the IETF standard because of the added complexity, I guess. But the people at OGC decided that it's not a very good thing to use the same name here because the structure is different. So you will break a lot of existing software if you do that. So they decided to, okay, let's say it's chord ref sys. Now that's a dedicated property here. You can use the usual URNs, URIs for describing what is your coordinate reference system that you're using for the place property. So again, this is not messing with the usual geometry property. That's still the same as it always was, as it is in GeoJSON. So it's expected to be VGS84. So again, you're not breaking the backwards compatibility with that. But additionally, you can say that, by the way, my place geometry is using this particular coordinate reference systems. It doesn't have to be the standard longitude latitude VGS84. So in your data, you can actually have like in this catenated example, you have the 3D geometry within the place, and then in the same object, you can have a polygon geometry, which is just a thing that you would expect from a GeoJSON object. So how does this fit into the build environment again? I think as I already mentioned, this is much easier for the developers to understand and play around, hack with it, than let's say CTGML, 3D models and stuff like that. Obviously, it doesn't have all the same capabilities, but it can act as a bridge where you really need to get something on a map and you still want to have that extended into 3D from the basic 2D. You can use this. And thing that I've heard, I think yesterday, directly from the authorities, that this is actually going to be used within the new system for the Finnish built environment, which is a multi-million euro project going on right now, and expecting in like 2 years, you can probably expect to have APIs available for spatial plans, building permits, and stuff like that using this. So that's really cool. And it's 100% compatible with, as I mentioned, with GeoJSON. So you can still use whatever tools you have for GeoJSON, and it just works. It doesn't have the 3D geometries, but it just still works. You can use PostGIS and stuff like that, which already has JSON support and a lot of tools, leaflet, open layers, and stuff like that still work. So yeah, with that, there's just a few links here. There is a link for the bit.ly link, quick link for this Mira presentation. If you want to look at it later, comment on it. Commenting is on, so please give feedback to me and just play around with this because we want to know how it works. It's still in draft phase, so we can still make some changes if it's not good enough for now. But yeah, it's usable. You can use it, hack on, and give feedback. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, Ilkka. Any questions from the audience? Is somebody working on something that could be utilizing this over this weekend? Maybe? Some maybes? Okay. Any questions? Any feedback? Any comments? We just had our lunch delivered, so
Yeah.
everybody's eating, busy eating.
Busy with burgers.
Yeah.
It's good to eat. I mean, otherwise your hacks will not be so good if you don't eat. Do eat, please.
But you had some really recent news about Thrifty platform.
Yeah. I just sent an email to the Finnish Environment Institute, people that are working with this Thrifty project. I just heard that they have made the decision, and there's going to be a announcement soon. But this is the first time you hear.
How do you see yourself, kind of the potential and opportunities some years forward with Thrifty platform and getting this kind of a base data to flow through the public authorities to all the stakeholders?
Yeah, it's so if you haven't heard of this Thrifty, it's a system that kind of collects all the spatial plans and building permits information from different municipalities within Finland. And so it's not going to be the primary place where that drafting of that information happens. That's still going to be done in communities by designers. But as soon as they get their work done, it's going to be synchronized into this single system, which you can use for querying for whole of Finland. That's really, I think that's the real good opportunity. So you can build on that applications that work on all the municipalities, basically. And so you have you can build national data sets much easier, APIs much easier. You can do web applications that just need to access one place for getting this information for all of the communities around Finland. I think that's the biggest effort, biggest things that are going to change, and it's going to be easier to build these applications.
Sounds good, and promising also all the developer communities and hackathons like this.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, thank you, Ilkka, for sharing us your story today and coming here on site. Next up, we will have the next tech talk. So Aarni Heiskanen will join us here to discuss about industrialized construction and some topics related to that. Little setup first, just a sec.
Joo. No niin. Tätä näyttöä. Joo. Entäs jos mä jään ikkuna? Ei se auta. Joo. Well, this is part of the... Okay, can you probably hear me? Yes. Okay, fine. I don't know how many times I've been at the AEC Hackathon, but several times. So my name is Aarni Heiskanen, and I'm an architect originally, also a consultant and also a software developer. Not so much in the construction sector, but in business software development. And I'm going to talk about how we here, especially here in Finland, try to innovate construction so that it would become more industrialized. And as a background, back in the 1980s, I was working for one summer for a company that was very industrialized. And here is an image from their production plant where they produced concrete, prefab concrete elements, as we call them here in Finland, elements. And that was a really interesting experience for a student. It really gave me a good understanding of how, if you industrialize construction far enough, how far you can go. For example, in 1 month, I did building permission documents or drawings before CAD or BIM for 50 homes in 1 month. So it was, and it went really well. So they are now somewhere around Finland, across Finland, those houses. And this was in the early 80s. So we have experience of this kind of work in Finland. But what is industrialization? That is something that we many in Finland envision, that our industry should become more like manufacturing. And I often think of manufacturing, when we think of manufacturing, we think about, for example, cars. But in fact, there are several ways to produce cars. There is this mass customized product, for example, BMW, as we have here, which is fairly standardized, but still it offers several ways to customize it within limits, of course. On the other hand, we might have a unique product like a hot rod or muscle car, which is really customized product. And also, when we think about the manufacturing process, we can on top we have manufacturing, like how we do cars in factories with robots and a very digitalized process. Of course, there are people also involved because of dexterity and decision making, but still it's very much robotized. At the other end is manual assembly. If you ever watched on TV a show called Fast and Loud, it was about custom car makers who almost from scratch built muscle cars and hot rods. So I think that if you think about construction, where would you place it in this grid? I would say that we are mostly nowadays still at the bottom left corner, where work is a lot of assembly is manual. We still, of course, use products that are pre-made, but still it's very much assembly is manual. And our products typically are quite unique. Here in Finland in the 70s, 80s, we did buildings which maybe were more like products because they were very similar. But nowadays, nobody accepts those buildings anymore and thinks they don't represent a good architecture. So that's why we don't do that. So, but the question is, how, if we want to industrialize construction, how can we move towards the center, perhaps? I'm not envisioning that we would ever be in the top right corner. It's not. I don't think it's feasible. But we have technologies now that we can use and methods that we can use to industrialize construction in other ways. To move the needle towards the right side, we can use digital technologies and configurations. For example, for residential projects, very easily we can use configurations, but to have the exactly same product for everybody, maybe that's not even our goal. And as for the process size, what we are doing in terms of processes are that we are very much implementing industrialized models like lean construction and Takt production, which I'm going to talk about a little bit now. So I don't know if you know the term Takt production, but in Finland, actually, we have already annually over 200 Takt production projects. So it's not something that is quite new, but it's still an area that is, for example, when I talked about this to a group of American architects and contractors 2 weeks ago, they didn't know it. So it's not quite as well known as here in Finland. So what does it mean? And by the way, these illustrations that I have here have been inspired by Juha Salminen, so thanks to Juha. This is the way Finnish contractors typically display or visualize the schedule of a project. You have time running from left to right, and then you have locations. For example, location can be It can be a floor or an apartment or a hotel room or whatever, how you define the location. And the task is, for example, it can be one trade doing something or one team doing something. And this kind of visualization tells you that task one or team one is working on location first, and then they move to location B, and then location C, and then team number 2 comes in. But unfortunately, we still have those buffers within between these lines, and it's interesting to see that in Finland, for example, you only need to be on the construction site 30% of the time to complete it on time. So there are lots of buffers within those tasks in Finnish construction, and I assume it's the same elsewhere as well. And one of the things that we want to avoid is this, that 2 teams are working on location B at the same time. So that's something that unfortunately happens. To visualize this schedule, the way they do in Takt production is like this. So we have those teams, 1, 2, 3, and buffers and areas or zones. And the timeline is, the deadline is on the right. So what can we do? What does lean or Takt production do differently? It takes away those buffers, and if there are any buffers, they will be at the end of the process, or there is still some space within that task. So the tasks are measured so that maybe 90% of the time is enough to typically complete the task. So this is the way Takt production works, and one Takt is always the same size. For example, it can be 1 day or 4 hours. For example, if there is an apartment, one team can come to paint it in Takt 1, and the second team can come to do the floor finishing on the second Takt. And of course, as you can see and imagine, this requires a lot of good management, good planning, so that the Takt is really reached, and there are no problems. Sometimes there are empty areas within these Takts as a buffer, but this is the way it goes. But to get the full benefit of Takt production, you make those areas as small as possible. So now you see what happens. So we can take like 50% of the original schedule just by organizing work differently. And this is something that we are practicing here in Finland. This is a real example. I think this is from Skanska, and shows us how they're using this. And but still, we use it basically on apartments, hotels, hospitals, also for renovation. So it's not just for new buildings. And of course, the results vary. It's not going every time as planned, to be honest. But still, everybody who's involved in these projects seems to be pretty happy, because now they know what they're going to do, where they're going to do, and when. And as I said, we have done over the last 3 years over 500 projects like this. So, to be able to make that Takt production work, we need transparency of information, we need good communication, and also coordination. And that's where digital tools and the tools that you develop, for example, make it possible. Situational awareness means that everybody on a project knows what's happening right now, what has happened, and what's going to happen next, or what is planned to happen next. So it's like having awareness of the project, and this means that everybody, including the field workers, should know it. And this is just an example from a Finnish application called SiteDrive. It's in Finnish, but maybe you get the picture when I explain a little bit more. So this is a type of mashup of information collected from various systems on the construction site. For example, you have safety assessments which are required by law, and those are done using a very systematic system here in Finland. You get the number of the level of safety as a percentage, for example. Quality reporting is nowadays most often done with mobile apps in Finland, and you can see how many deviations, for example, you have from the original design and schedule. Then you can get from the access control, you can get what's the head count of the site at any moment. Temperature and humidity sensors are used. For example, for curing concrete or for interior work, you have to have certain conditions in the building. And then, of course, schedule is very important. And for this SiteDrive software, for example, is specialized in Takt production. So that is important. And cost control is crucial in construction. And also procurement and logistics. So nowadays we are able to collect all this data from the site and bring it together, for example, for a display like this. Another Finnish company is AR4Site, and they have taken this idea of concept of industrialized construction even a little bit further. They have actually a control room in which one person can control one site or several sites at the same time. And they use sensors and beacons, and this is one of the views from their system. You can see where everybody is on the site. So you have a like a X-ray of the site, and those helmets mean that there is a certain team or a person working there. And by collecting this kind of data, they can measure the productivity of individuals and also teams, of course, and make predictions. They use AI to make predictions of the progress. And then also they have this site engineer who walks around the site regularly and with a helmet camera and records everything that's giving the situational awareness of progress on the site. Several Finnish firms have started experimenting with robotics as well. Not so much in production, but more like data collection, reality capture, and of course Boston Dynamics Spot is one example. And this is some footage that I've taken. I've been several times with Spot on the site, and nowadays it also has an arm, so it can basically open doors and walk around. And of course, the idea eventually is that this should be autonomous. Nowadays, it's still human has to teach it the route, but then it can walk autonomously. But in the future, I think that it will be mostly autonomous, and it can also go into elevators and also elevators. For example, Kone, the elevator company, is now collecting information or data from elevators during construction, so they know it helps logistics and gives one more data set for the situational awareness. One thing that whenever we develop something for the construction site, and we very often we think of the supervisors and and managers and so on, but who actually creates the value on the site? It's those field workers and those teams that actually do the final assembly. And they have been pretty much left out of the digitalization so far. And one of the ideas in Finland is now that we are now trying to empower these workers. Some companies now developing tools that can automatically report to the worker when he comes to the site in the morning, what you're going to do today, where is your job site, where are your tools, where are your materials, and so on. So this is something that we are now trying to achieve, because typically a worker like this guy here, they spend like 25%, maybe 30% of their time doing actually what they should be doing, and the rest of the time they are looking for information, looking for tools, materials, having meetings, trying to figure out what to do. So it's really not productive. The next big thing, of course, is that we would automate all this situational awareness and coordination. So the idea is that already now we have the BIM models, we have field data from sensors, cameras, drones, robots. We have the plan, we have logistics data coming from logistics companies and manufacturer data from, for example, from these factories that produce those elements. So, of course, the problem, as you can see, is that nobody has standardized that data that's coming in. So how do we make it useful? That is a big question. And for example, Finnish Aalto University has developed an ontology for data, so that there's an ontology for the process that you can use as a software developer. If you want, it's on GitHub if you're interested. So the idea is that we can collect and make usable, then we can analyze and synthesize, probably with AI tools, and finally we can deliver it as a personal data package or information package to whoever needs it. So this is the ultimate, and if we are able to automate this is maybe the biggest change in construction for decades. Then we also this also means that whatever the designers create is very crucial in the future. Here we see Hilti's J-Bot, which is a robot that drills holes in the ceiling, and it does also remove dust and so on. And it uses the data from BIM models. So the BIM model has to have those drilling those holes included. This means that in the future we will need more precise information about the site. And of course, one thing that we know already is that, for example, when we use these slab elements in Finland, the installation is ±5 centimeters. So the tolerances are really high. So if you have a robot that can place the hole precisely, is it able to still to place it right when the construction doesn't, when the actual site doesn't reflect the original BIM model that you have? So that's one of the problems that we will have in the future. Of course, we are not just doing this for the technology's sake. What are the potential benefits of Takt and digital situational awareness? If you are using tools like those cameras and things like that, and you can do inspections remotely, for example, you can manage sites remotely. Now we can have cranes that not in Finland yet, but I'm sure they are coming, where one person can operate like 5 cranes at the same time. So going to the sites is not required from everybody. So meetings, inspections will go down, hopefully. The lead time of the project, there's a potential to take 20 to 40% of the lead time of a project. Worker productivity. I'm not sure that 20% sounds really conservative to me. I think it could be like 100% in the future, but that's one number that I've heard. Quality costs, of course, which are important, down 20%, and other expenses 20%. So these are some numbers that have been already kind of being seen in actual construction. So these are not just hypothetical numbers. So finally, what are some of the key points that I would like to summarize here? I think that it doesn't make sense to digitalize a mess. So if you're just trying to digitalize something that is now done by paper and pen and not looking at the way it's done, maybe you can get marginal benefits, but I would start with systematizing the process first, for example, with Takt production, and then start looking at digital tools. Transparency will be crucial. You should be transparent across the project and organization, and this is something that is not happening right now. People are still very siloed in what they do. They don't want to share information or data. But this is, I think, necessary. And finally, empower the worker. So those who actually create the final product, they should be given all the needs, all the other things that they need to be successful. And if you want to know more about construction innovation and technology, I have a blog at aec-business.com that you can follow, and also I'm also on LinkedIn. So I think that was my presentation, and if you have any comments or questions or ideas, please.
All right, thank you, Aarni. Any questions, comments from the audience here on site?
My comment is that it's very interesting what you're saying. You are coming from quite a traditional production of houses. And you are conservative, I think, in the numbers, basically.
Yeah, but
because of that, but also I'm coming from the other and the industry, the mass production of things that is not so much done within the construction industry. I am a believer of that we will get some of our production much more up into the right upper corner, the C area, but it's not 100% of the field. Of course, it's maybe 10% or 20% or 40%, but that is enormous volume. If we could get up there. And it will always be what you are describing here, a lot of manual workforce. But it will also be another area that it will be possible to do more within limitation, flexibility, but under a roof and transported to site in a more efficient way. What's your comment on that?
Yeah, I agree that any change that we are now doing won't touch every construction site, every company on the planet. But even if we can make it for 10%, I think 10% is already a huge number. So I'm all in for that. But the funny thing is that I just I showed the picture of the concrete prefabrication plant, and it was from the 1970s in Finland, and back then they also produced plastic homes, prefabricated plastic home, modular homes in Finland, and that's something that now everybody's talking about. Well, that's a fantastic idea. So it's funny that 50 years ago we were doing this, and still we are doing things like so. It's a very conservative business.
Comment to that then. I think the difference from just a few years ago, and now is that we have catch up the digital way of handling data. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And that is also making it's possible to make variations. In what we did 57, even 70 years ago was kind of mass production, but it was just looking the same all the time, and we were not happy about that. But now we can handle data in another way, and it gives us possibilities.
Yeah, that is the decisive factor that we should all take advantage of. And also, I don't think that mass production in the way that we make cars is actually clever for us, because we can do it much better. I think so. We have much more playroom, headroom in the process. So. But I'm really so I've been in the industry for a long time, but I'm still optimistic, and I think that over the last few years there has been so much development that I'm really optimistic about the future.
Good. It's good to end to that saying. Yes, and that's why we all are here actually for the weekend as well, to do things much better. And let's have a small break. We have 2 more speakers to come. So just a small organization break to set up the next presentation. Okay. Next, we have our third speaker in the Tech Talks, Katja Rodionova, with a topic of R&D power games and bullshit. So let's hear about that one. Go ahead, Katja.
Thank you. So yes, Katja Rodionova, and I started as an entrepreneur quite long ago, moved to academy and then to actual structural design. And now I would like to talk to you about engineering, both structural engineering and data engineering, because it's my next best love topic, but from a bit different perspective, and maybe challenge how you use and how you design your tools. So let's try to make this 15 minutes worthwhile for you. And what is engineering? Basically, engineering prepares to concentrate for a long time on hard questions and actually produce a comprehensive document, understandably document the solution that enhance many lives. And of course, engineering is like a technical discipline, but what if the challenges we face are not just technical, but socio-technical? What does this mean? So, for instance, corruption is a way we use power, and the use power is called corruption if it's for personal gain. So, compared to the normal economic activity, which is supposed to be for the personal gain, we need to be very precise about what we do in organizations and how we act in between our colleagues and in the ecosystem in general. Then greenwashing or carbon washing is the practices of calling services green or sustainable, which actually they're not quite. So this is the second consideration we need to take into account where we make PR or just promote our services. Culture of silence is an important issue in organizations. So when something happens which should not be happening, like corruption or greenwashing, then most people think, of course, I would speak out, but few actually do. And we need to uncover why is it happening. And more towards the data science, bullshit is my favorite topic, is an information given without regard if it's truthful or not. So it's not necessarily a lie, it can be truthful. The thing is, the person who produces it does not care. So if we do not care about what information we produce, it can be bullshit. Even with the best, maybe, intention of producing like very green impression of our product. And finally, white-collar crime. And this is a crime which is not violent, but can be nevertheless destructive. And it's not victimless. So what is special about white-collar crime? It requires unique knowledge. It is complex. It is very hard to investigate. And basically, in society governed by the law, there's a measurable gray zone, which maybe we do not go too deep into this unfortunate things, but we may experience they like borderline options, which are maybe not even criminal, but are quite toxic and damage our innovative culture and the organization and ourselves nevertheless. So case studies, how this can unwrap. And this is very like simple, and on the other hand, it's something that you could very easily miss even in your own organization and in your own life. So first case is my favorite topic of complex chamber design, and I wrote a Cambridge thesis for sustainability leadership about this concrete project. So what is special about timber multi-story buildings? They require two sets of calculations, as you can see on the right, to be calculated on a safe side. And let's suppose in the first documented finding that the two sets of calculations should be made is from year 2017, and it is referencing earlier works. However, no action is made throughout the years. And what's more, the organization is so siloed, then the other design team does not even know this exists, and they launch their own automation project. And when in this automation project, which is on public grant, the design principles and existing tools are documented transparently. This launch a series of retaliation and sabotage measures from the management. And these design principles are all connected to rigid plate assumption, which is 1/2 of the calculations that should be made in the building. After the design team leave the company, management launch the project and move it through in a controlled fashion, publish the design tool, and this is happening 3 years after the initial finding on how the design should be made. So in this case, every instance of retaliation was documented, but there is another case for comparison where design team started developing independently, like in a small workshop, they own carbon calculation tool, and management did not want this to happen, so they retaliated for initiative, for overseas collaboration, for public discussion. So there should not be reference of the design tool being easy to implement. And this retaliation was not all documented. Then when the design team left the company, management launches their own project. And after 2 years, celebrated it as the results of their own strategy. But the fact is the management was stopping this from happening for like 3 previous years. And this is kind of information that stakeholders of every company would like to know, and it affects culture. Like this affects like many people in the company around it, and environment, and whatever governmental objectives there are in general. But this information is extremely hard to obtain. And we are talking sometimes about toxic practices in organizations. We are talking about them like per se. So women get addressed as the tallest poppies, for instance, and their achievements are downplayed, left out. Others are allowed to take credit. But we do not speak so often about the fact that this is actually a useful tool set to enable the innovation mitigation in organizations, and to ensure that control over innovation and control over novel value chains remains in the hands of the already existing leadership. And I make this letting others take credit. I kind of make it in big letters because it is not it is a bit special, because this also explains us why organization silos are useful. And letting others take credit is not just a negative thing, it is also a positive thing, because the person who is given the opportunity, they feel reciprocal, they feel they are given the opportunity, they feel they are valued. But what it also facilitates is that the owner, the initial owner of the project, they might be protective of its green qualities, for instance, of its like technical quality. Whereas the person who reciprocates and is thankful to the leadership, they might be more willing to make a compromise, just because they feel good about leadership and what they received from them. And I think that breaking culture of silence in real estate and construction is the way to establish a new economy, new data economy, new social economy, and basically just improve our chances to make this sustainability transition and data transition in time. So there are 3 or not 4 behaviors which are recognized as counter-learning behavior in organizations, and then they are behaviors that we need to change to a new model to enable this transition. So first, counter-learning behavior is when a person just adjusts to shortcomings in materials and supplies and do not bother management or others. And the role of noisy complainer is a person who takes ownership of the problem, remediates it, but also becomes vocal about it. The other behavior is correcting errors of others without speaking or confronting the person who is doing the error. And the role which we need to approach and make possible in our organizations are nosy troublemakers. So this is a person who lets others know when they have made a mistake and create learning. So not blame, but learning. Counter-learning behavior is when someone creates an impression of never making mistakes themselves. And this is like really hard bite for everyone. It was really hard for me to become self-aware error maker. But it works like this. You come into projects and you do not have tools to implement. And you have a schedule and you make the mistakes you are required to make. But then you document it all and you go forward with documented and reporting. Finally, committed to the current way of doing business. So we all can say we understand why we need to compromise on this and that, and this is wrong. This is counter-learning behavior. And the new model of action is to become a disruptive questioner who won't let well enough alone. So you talk and you talk and you talk until everybody starts listening. Or maybe they just hit you hard in the face. But then you talk about this. And basically how the reporting should be facilitated in responsible organization. So this Excel does not make a good calculation tool. You report and document how you report it. So your project manager does not report the development needs forward. Yep. You report this and document this. So unit manager is retaliating instead of giving funds for this development. Again, report and document. CEO or board of director are not acting transparently on reported issues. The same thing, but at some level, we come to the systems, services, and codes in our organization and society, which just not enable reporting to be performed diligently. And this is something to be aware of where you design systems or you make innovation. Your product should not prevent diligent reporting. Regarding our finish, how we should report in a responsible society. So people should be sure they're heard and they're safe. But whistleblower channels in listed companies, basically you give information to someone specified manager and you cannot track how this is processed or prevent this information from being spilled to your own manager maybe. There's building error bank in Fira, and then it's also not transparent and it's not safe. So reports should be approved in your organization as error, and personal details are known to a group of people. Union legal support is not functioning either. So what is detailed reporting and how it should be followed through in our more general professional domain. So to design trustworthy organization, it jumps forward all the time. Yeah. So first of all, any investigation should be externally led, transparent, comprehensive, and independent. And we should make sure that primary responsibility in born by organization design and the organization principles should be and first suspect of this investigation. Staff amnesty is the first principle, and if the high profile misdemeanor is found out, there likely should be high profile departures. Ethical trainings, revision of codes of conduct, and first of all, primarily responsibility should be traceable. And finally, external control of competition. And this is important if we know there's high competitive domains. We should ensure that competition is controlled to prevent this downward spiral and ethic loosening. This is a final picture. So real transformation actually look like this. So it's not easy. It starts with very, very filthy work. You first take hold of some very minor detail, and then everybody should pull to really make this through. This cannot be like just painted over. So thank you very much. I prepared this in real hurry, so hopefully I have good questions, but probably I made some mistakes.
All right, thank you, Katja. It's grand. Deep stuff. Any questions, comments, thoughts from the audience on site? At least why I myself like this hackathon concept is that we are here to kind of build a safe zone for new ideas and new perspectives. And referring to your talk, that's what we should be able to do within each of our organizations as well. And there's definitely a lot of culture change needed for that to be happening on a wide scale. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
I could comment at least about hackathons. So hackathon can be a safe haven for co-creation if you allow ideas to be shared and you make it like, Chatham House rule. So you can really speak about deep stuff without being exposed to, retaliation and so on. On the other hand, there's this copycat culture, which I talk about when someone develops a product and then it's just taken away by means of organizational power. And this is like a task. So when you give innovation funding, when you organize hackathons, so how do you actually safeguard the weakest and not the strongest? Because otherwise, people go through few cycles of this experience and they let go when they're basically in their prime. And then we say we do not have professionals. You have professionals, they just do not trust you. And this is an important part.
And it's really a multi-faceted thing, because system can do so much with their ways of doing, and then we have culture, we have people, we have individuals, and all of that has to come together in a way that it works.
Yes. So how, about hackathons, how do you measure trustworthiness? How do you improve it? how do I make it real so people believe, not just for like corporate reports? So this is the key to enable this innovation at scale.
Good points and questions. Now it's time for our, thank you Katja again. Now it's time for our last and definitely not least presentation. Let's have a small break to set things up before Tero can take the stage.
Everybody come here, now is the last show. Only pictures for you today.
Yes,
Don't worry.
The final show, final tech talk is ready to start. So it's my pleasure to welcome Tero Vanhanen from Fira on stage for the final talk, talking about phenomenal project development or something in the lines of that, right?
Something.
All right, so go ahead, Tero.
Okay, well, I start with the carrot philosophy because so many times in huge projects, it doesn't matter is it town planning or high-rise housing block or whatever, there is a lot of demands and promises, but they end up like this. And it is unfortunate. And nowadays, we have nice digital tools to do collaboration. We have very fast kind of collaboration. I have been in town planning business, development business, and everything takes like 3 or 5 years, totally too long. We have one finding from Heiskanen Architectures that digitality can create new buildings. There is a Spacemaker, very useful tool. There is a engineer Cityfire, and in radio I heard that there is Satisfyer also. Who knows? And the site drive, if you think about the construction sites, we can help everybody to be more productive with these digital tools. Unfortunate thing here is that so many developers in this software industry, they are trying to solve problems in that very long pipeline kind of project. So there is, of course, opportunities for different kind of digital tools and applications, but we can do everything much faster with our bare hands if we use right kind of a mindset. And that mindset I have been studying like 20 years. And the one tool that I want to mention you that I learned in MIT is mass customization. I have been trying to solve this project planning with mass customization, that we create virtual libraries about the buildings, office sites, and whatever. This is one way to put it, but it won't help if there is not the right kind of culture, because there is town planning office, financial people, everybody involved here. And this costs a lot of money, like €1 million very easily to plan one block. And it takes time, a lot of red pencil also. In Fira, we can do this 1 or 2 years project in one day without any nice applications or something like that, because we have different kind of virtual libraries already made that we just put all together in the unique combination, whatever the plot or the customer need is. I have been doing a lot of town planning even in one city, in Lahti, and my hair went like this, and I couldn't be official man anymore. So I went to commercial side, and again, a lot of different kind of huge projects that I have been developing, and everything always takes like 5 years. So and I will end up over and over again about this collaboration thing. Because when there's a project idea, there is a huge stomach here, where is investors, operators, town planning office, building permission office, politicians, builders, construction companies, and the money. And one thing I was showing this to environmental ministry. Someday they want to be in Perna also, so they were happy to be involved there. But you can imagine what comes out from this machine. And this whole thing, if we use Excel curves, what is one way to put it, it will take a lot of years, and it is very terrible process too many times. There is fighting almost, and end user pays it all. So the whole thing is totally too architect driven here. Architects plan things to each others, and they are not caring about, after all, like a typical ordinary people walking in the city and what they would prefer as architectural, aesthetic, wonderful and beautiful things and so on. So this is totally professional driven. And that thing I have been working on like 20 years already is that how you all could create applications that we could do more efficient collaboration between developers, users, planners, producers, so on. So that would be the most wonderful help nowadays. And we need very multidisciplinary collaboration there. This is one way to put it, that we did one Helsinki challenge competition proposal. Teemu was involved also there like 5 years ago. And our point was to help the city's projects, new kind of town planning, project development to be more user-friendly and human-orientated. And our theme was that how we can co-create kissable townscape, how we can help all the communities to collaborate there and create value together, and what kind of new business models we can take in, because these are huge multi-billion euros projects. So of course it would be wise to take startups with those kind of projects, because there is some money to spend in development side too. And that is the reason that we need philosophers, entrepreneurs, everybody working together. And one thing here in this project development that I have learned with different cities is that so many people who are working as I don't know what is the virkamies in English, but in our cities as a town planners or townscape officer or whatever, they are not taking care about the money side at all. They think that everything is so cheap and the profits are so huge that they can demand anything they want. Well, the case is not so. For example, this is Pasila YIT case that YIT need to put away because it was too risky and there wasn't profit at all coming in. Now, the Skanska is creating a new proposal for this Pasila city center area, and probably they will end up with similar challenges with the city, that there is huge architectural demand, but no enough cost efficiency that customers can and end users can buy these. Our team created one proposal also in this Pasila competition like 5 years ago, and we get to the finals, but we take it away because after carefully calculations, our probably winning proposal was totally too expensive, so it wasn't point to go further. So the money should be more involved in this collaboration, that everybody can learn with each other that how much things are costing, and then we can produce new cities together when there is again a suitable price for the end users. So the lady Excel, she is cutting away always something, and one thing that I just learned, that there is a possibilities to create good enough quality with low price enough. And one thing that Espoo gave us even a prize when we did this kind of Suvela area project development there, and that was very fast, without any digitally help or applications. It was about the 2 hours project planning that we did our customer Avara, who was a housing developer in there, and they now own all the apartments and renting them. So with this kind of approach, that when we use mass customization, we can be very fast. It was like even with the same inside the same day, everything was done. So with this kind of approach and tools, there is so much possibilities to make fruitful collaboration between town planners and all other parties, because we have everything in there. And this is a huge architectural like a discussion nowadays, that architects are demanding that everybody should do that on the right corner, and developers, investors want and can do only that other corner there. So we really need to learn from each other that what kind of design solutions are doable. And this site is always a problem, and there is huge fights because of this lack of knowledge. And what my final conclusion here is that I have been working in many different kind of sectors and working place, and now I said that town planners should be something differently, but also construction company managers and developer managers should do something a little bit a different way, because now everybody is putting all the human resources and the money to creating project after project, and they are failing after failing and facing the same challenges every time over and over again. And the whole industry is totally too project orientated, and it is very hard to put something new ideas or something disruptive thinking when everybody is concentrating on only these projects. So a little bit more value means that companies should pay more attention about the work that could help many projects. For example, findings, share the findings, and a learning curve, how the different kind of project teams can learn together, that all the silent knowledge is scaled, at least inside the one company. One moment. And work for processes to help all projects. So standardization and this kind of thinkings may help there. And I have been so many times in the position that I try to help the whole industry. And when I come with all these ideas for a project manager, I will get something like this, that go away, you are wasting our time. So that was one part, and there is more parts, but there was one hand up. Would you? Good. Actually, right now, because we can use master customization and the libraries to put all findings in those libraries, that they are helping all others in their projects, because the challenges are very similar. For example, if one huge company, they have an aerial office in Tampere and Turku and Helsinki. The culture is that there is nobody director in the Tampere who wants to call Turku at, hi, how is hanging and what kind of project challenges you have been facing, and have you find new ideas, because everybody is so badass there that nobody wants to call to friend to ask somebody. So this kind of virtual library that I'm going to show is one like a possibility that how to share these findings to each other. And modularity is always the first step when we think about more intelligent production in factories, like industrialized construction things. This is one sample that we have in Fira. So we have standardized concrete pipelines, and we even give this detailed pipeline for the whole project team before the whole project even starts. So architects, somebody is a little bit disappointed that, oh, I cannot create something unique with your system, so go away. Then other architect, yeah, we can do the collaboration. And this again needs new kind of cultural approach, that everybody inside the whole design and project team wants to use these virtual components, which help, as I mentioned, production, because they can use standardization and serial production, which helps to be more cost efficient, better quality, and digitalization. It starts from the designing and planning board and end up in these products. And after the whole thing, when everybody is done, so it's still there the tag, yes, everything is right now okay. So when this kind of components, and for example, prefabricated bathrooms, obviously the quality is getting better and better all the time when they are focusing on that product, which is scalable for different projects. So quality, of course, is one benefit here, that we can have a more cost efficient things, more quicker design, and better quality with this approach. And of course, this means that we need huge libraries, like thousands of different kind of apartments, where every detail is planned very carefully, even before we know where to put these things. But this all makes the planning and designing part very easy and very fast. And if there is a unique architectural needs here, and somebody doesn't want to be like a blueprint drawer person for a civil engineer, well, whatever is created here, we first try to put the thing together using libraries. And if there is something unique need, so obviously we have a design team, so they can do the customization stuff there. And no matter what the material is here, and everything is can be custom made. But first we try to use our virtual components. And everybody knows that there is kitchen components, so we have a already made apartment components. So easy. And all these, when we think about the old kind of Swiss clock, so this is the starting point of all the data which must be handled in projects. And this data here, to get all the best use out of it, it means that our customers need to find the solutions, our catalogs. And of course, there's a different kind of levels for costs and so on. So they can have premium stuff with the premium price, or low cost with the low cost price. And even the end users can pick up the dream apartment and put everything inside there that they really want to pay. And this is so tight that even if there is a huge demand, like Mr. Bond here, so he is rolling around here catalog thing also. And I have been doing this presentation a lot with my colleague Jussi Aho, and he is always there rolling around. And all this is meant to help construction site to be like a platform for installation work. There shouldn't be any concrete destroying things and unique stuff, but more like that all ready pre-designed, prefabricated parts that they put together there. And this all means finally that we can do very detailed plans very fast. I am helping my friend Peter Westerpakka to create a new townscape with this 100-kilometer tunnel. And believe it or not, it is still going on. Somebody will laugh finally. And now we have all these digital things here. So we can create new city in one day. I did this island in one Sunday just for fun. And of course, there is unique kind of town planning ideas for pedestrians here and green areas. Somebody wants to live in skyscrapers, so there should be skyscrapers, and some better architect can design all these facades. But I put also little Venezia here because I like Venezia. It's nice romantic place to have some wine and so on. So when we do everything like 100 times faster, we can co-create things together with the price tag and everything. And finally, this means that when we finalize the 100-kilometer tunnel here, so we are going to be like a capital of whole Eurasian world here. So I'm happy that you are right now in here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tero. I must say that Mr. Bean actually looks like Jussi Aho.
Yes. Jussi thought so. I am not deleted showing that.
Any questions, comments, feedback from the audience?
So basically 2 questions, choose the one which you like. And one question is, when we have platforms with a lot of parties promoting data, so we have not a value chain, but a value network with different parties making data. How are you valuing it? So it's not just directors who exchange information, it's like everybody.
Yeah. And the directors are in a position that they pretty much can affect that what kind is the culture. So they should demand that project managers are doing more collaborating with each others. And for town planners, I always say that you shouldn't demand like already made beautiful designs and a very thick like a book that this is all detailed plans what they are going to fix anyway. So the point is that everybody should see in one place first and start to co-create things using these libraries so that they can find a good solution, like a win-win-win situation together, not as a typical way that developer and architect office is planning something and they are showing it to the city and there is like a huge comment round and they are concentrating on detailed things and then they give a feedback and developer and architect start to create a little bit new kind of plans and again and over again. So the point is that why I mentioned again this cultural part is that we have now digital tools and a lot of stuff already made. So there shouldn't be any barriers to just put everybody together and start to develop together. I don't know is this answer for you, but managers and directors in the city and the companies actually are like a key persons to tell that this is the new culture that we should do together.
All right. First year.
Let's see if I can explain myself.
Same here.
First of all, I'm a great fan.
Okay, thank you.
So we need to connect on LinkedIn or something. The missing point, in my opinion, is the link between what you are describing and the production. Whatever that production is. I mean, it can be totally factorized production modules. I really agree about what you're saying about the fancy buildings and the curved roofs and everything. that is just always becomes too expensive and a big fight. But I do also think that if we are developing our methods in how we are producing things, we can combine standardized or production with limitation, still flexible, but within limitation, with also some fancy curves.
Yes.
But when you are talking, it's all about planning and very little about how we are actually producing. I understand that the house you created in just a few hours was based on knowledge for how to produce that house. But how do you think we should actually produce the houses in the future?
Well, actually, that is another like a presentation. So this was like a first part because everybody starts in design board. For example, this kind of solutions. So the developer, planner, and the construction company together first need to want together that this is the way that we are going to design and that this is the way that we are going to produce and construct things. So when we first accept that there is modular thinking in planning board, so it is the first step to put this other kind of modular fabrication in those plans and projects and ideas. So, for example, this bathroom pod that I mentioned, that Fira created, and now there is an own company for that flow modules. So I always put this detailed prefabricated bathroom plan in every plan. So it is like a direct sales pipe for that thing. So this is the reason that I started from a design part, but there is many hundred pictures with this production part also.
Yeah, that was the missing part from my point of view.
Yeah. And one actually I need to add more because when we think about the evolution of construction, so 4,000 years ago, they were doing this offsite construction. Now the industry is developing pretty slowly, that we are still putting those rocks together, but still it's the curve that what we are heading on after all.
All right, Leo.
Yeah, hey, thanks. Great presentation as usual. So you presented apartments as modules here in your presentation. How does that affect the business model? Is a traditional business model still the best, or what are your thoughts about that?
No, well, somebody is making a decision anyway. Usually it is like a project manager architect and, for example, sales manager of apartments. They three together decide that this is the allocation of the sizes and this is like a style of building and so on. So this only means that why won't we use these already made plans, and if there need to be something more unique, then we fix only one corner. Not that we need to like start over and over sketching from the scratch. So it is only a helping tool.
All right.
Thank you.
I guess that's a wrap for the Tech Talks. And thank you all the speakers. Thank you all in the audience. Tomorrow will be the next stream with final pitching and judging of the hackathon. So hopefully everybody there online will join tomorrow as well. And let's continue hacking. Thank you very much.